All right, welcome to SkyTech One. This is Victor, your host today with the first guest of SkyTech One, Mike Volfman from Amoeba Networks. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, Mike, of course. Can you tell us a little bit about your background, like, how long you've been in, working with computers and a little bit about your work history, maybe the interesting points?
Yeah, of course. I've worked in IT for about 20 years, on and off. I started out just as an intern in my high school, just working with Active Directory, crimping cables, helping staff just do very basic things. And this was back in 2002 when I was 17. So, I knew how to use a computer. I knew how to install like a PCI or an AGP card or edit the registry, but I really didn't understand enterprise at all. So, working in my high school in an organization really gave me a good feel for how things are, in the real world. So I didn't work during those entire 20 years. I finished high school. I went to college. During college, I worked at Circuit City, which is really interesting. Circuit City did their equivalent of the Geek Squad. Back then it was called the IQ Crew. I think they were sued. They had changed the name to Firedog eventually. So that introduced me to customer service, to just dealing with people as they walk in. I have no idea who these people are. They're just slapping their computer down to my desk and saying, "Hey, can you fix this?" So that was really exciting. And I tried to do that same thing at Staples after I left Circuit City. Staples was also starting their own thing. And I'm not sure if they still have it, but Staples just didn't have what it takes to run that, to do that. So, finished college, started my first help desk job in 2008, just working for a company called AW Systems, which isn't around anymore. And that introduced me to help desk and remote support. So, prior I only knew how to do everything in person. I had to touch the computer, talk to the customers. This was completely different. Everything was via log me in. I couldn't see anything. I had to get them to allow me to remote in. Everything was documented prior. I had no idea what documentation was. So, I did that for a couple of years and went in-house to a real estate company, Halstead Property, which is now Brown Harris Stevens. And I was a network admin there for about 3 years. So a little different than MSP, in-house, having never worked in-house, I got to know people. I came in every day, it was in person. I knew the L3 people, the people that designed the network. I knew all the agents that I worked with, all the real estate agents. And it was good. And then eventually I moved on to a startup called Organic Avenue, which is really fun. I was an IT manager for a little under a year, and I just kind of got to do whatever I wanted. I built out the network, ESXi, Dell networking, 11 locations, POS system. I had an MSP reporting to me, so that was really exciting. And fortunately, that company went under, and from there I went on to Cartwheel, where I decided, maybe in-house is not right for me, and I already know how to work with an MSP. So I went to Cartwheel, worked there for a couple of years, and from Cartwheel I ended up at Amoeba. And at Amoeba I worked at for a little under 5 years. I think this is the longest that I've ever worked at any job. And about 4 years ago, my boss moved to Seattle and kind of left a vacuum in New York. Where it was very flat. We're all engineers. We're all just responding to tickets, but there was really no leadership in New York. So I slowly took on that role, and I officially became the technical services manager here, where I'm responsible for a lot of things. I manage the team. I manage the vendors. I do a lot of documentation. Essentially, I just try to keep everybody happy. Also, I do a lot of technical things, but I wear a lot of hats. So, like this week, for example, I'm going to a number of on-site assessments, a number of prospects that want to work with us. So I'm going to go check out their offices and just see what's going on there and see how we can help them.
I see. So Amoeba Networks is, I mean, what kind of company is it? Is it like a networking company? How do you describe it?
So Amoeba Networks is a managed service provider. So we work with small and medium businesses to either manage their infrastructure or co-manage their infrastructure. Some customers are just break fix, but really for the most part, we take everything that's IT that they would do and we do it for them, and we do it at a fraction of the cost of what an in-house person would cost. You know, for companies under 50 people, it doesn't make sense to have somebody in-house. It's just too expensive. They're going to be sitting around a lot, not doing anything. So they pay us a little bit less. We do great work, and everybody wins.
Great. And you mentioned Circuit City, it was very exciting for you. What kind of things that you did during your early years applied, and what was your major in college? Like, what kind of things in your early years that, in Circuit City that you did kind of apply to your work at Amoeba?
Sure, yeah. So kind of a loaded question. At Circuit City, I learned to deal with new people. So prior to that, I only knew how to work with established relationships. It took me a long time to really understand what's going on. And at Circuit City, I really had to just act on the fly. So somebody would come in, say, my computer's broken, there's people waiting behind them. I have to triage, I have to figure out what's going on, I have to kind of gauge how much they're willing to spend. I just had to make these fast decisions and really be receptive and understanding of who the people are and what they want to do. So that really helped me later on in my career, especially when I started with managed services in 2008. I was taking these calls. I didn't know who people were. I just had to gauge everything. Eventually I did establish relationships with them because they were existing clients, but very often it was somebody from an office that I had never spoken to before, and they were upset because something wasn't working. So I just had to act really fast and decide, is this going to take 2 hours, or is it going to be 15 minutes? How do I manage my time? There's a lot of other stuff going on. So it took a long time to develop those time management and triage type skills.
Yeah, that definitely is definitely true. I guess, since you're like a computer guy, I guess the question would be, what computer or computers do you have, and what's like their setups?
Sure. I've always been a big fan of Lenovo computers for a number of reasons. The way they're built is good. Like the professional ones, they're built like tanks, because Lenovo bought IBM's workstation division about a decade ago, I think. So they look like the old classic ThinkPads. They're built very well. They last forever. Their support is very good. Something breaks, they have on-site support, so I really like that. That's why I recommend Lenovo products to our customers. But I also use them myself. I like that they're very repairable. It's very easy to just take the back plate off, replace the RAM if it's not soldered on, replace the hard drive. NVMe now can't replace the CPU, but you could take things out, put things in. It's not a lot of effort. A lot of other computers, not Dell, but like HP is notorious for this. They make their computers very difficult to open up, and I haven't broken any, but it's hard. So for that reason, I like to tinker. I like to replace hard drives. I like to replace RAM. I like to see what's inside, clean them out if I need to, clean the fan out. They get dirty. So for that reason, I really like Lenovo. Second choice, I think, is Dell. I used an XPS 9550 for a little while. Just bought it used it, sold it. Just for fun. My setup evolves over time. So the past year, I've just been working from home, and I tried just with a standing desk, because I'm in one of these Manhattan apartments. There's no room to just have a dedicated desk. So I had a standing desk in my kitchen, 2 monitors, docking station, laptop. And what I found was I was spending a lot of time on my couch, just to avoid arm strain, eye strain, foot strain, strain all over. I just find that working on the couch is most preferable for me, rather than standing or sitting. I work long hours. I start at 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes I don't finish until 6, 7 at night. And being somewhere soft and comfortable really helps with that. So I'll have my laptop. I'll have my MX Master 3 mouse, and I can just keep going like that. I have a personal Lenovo X390, which has it's fairly new. It's a couple of years old. Has an i7 8665U CPU, pretty beefy, one of the top end Intel 8th generation processors, 16 gigs of RAM, 512 gig NVMe, just a good system all around. And up until recently, I was doing some light gaming on it. I was playing Dota 2. And the way that I was doing that is I have a Razer Core X, which is an eGPU. It's an external graphics card box. And inside you could put any kind of graphics card in. So I had the only card that I was actually able to buy before they all sold out everywhere on the planet on the primary market was the GTX 1660 Super. So I used that for a couple of months, and I realized I was playing too much Dota 2. So I stopped. I listed the card for like more than double what it retailed for, and so somebody bought it. So I have the Razer Core X sitting around, but the card is somewhere in Texas now, being enjoyed by somebody else.
I see. So, you mentioned that you're kind of like the couch is your desk. So you basically wasted, the money on a stand-up desk, right?
Well, so I bought a really crummy standing desk, and then I just got rid of it. It's like $50, but I never really invested in like a real nice big like electric standing desk. We have one in storage, but it's massive. It used to be in our office before we closed the office, and it's just this big massive desk, and there's nowhere that I can put it in this apartment. I would have to gut the kitchen to put it in there.
Yeah, that's the case with like living in Manhattan. Like I've noticed some other people who are kind of not able to buy standing desks.
Yeah.
But you mentioned you mentioned the Lenovo laptop, right? How come you don't use a desktop?
There's no room for it. I used a desktop up until maybe 2010. Desktops was the only thing that I understood back then. And so I liked having a desktop because I could tinker with it. I could put hard drives in it. I could modify it. I could build it myself if I want to. I could just easily open it up and interchange parts. At the time, laptops were really hard to repair. They were very expensive. So I just never happened. And then about 10 years ago, I switched on to just using laptops. So I haven't had a desktop in about a decade. I haven't owned a desktop. I haven't had a desktop in my apartment in that time, just using it on a regular basis. Every now and then I have one here to repair or whatever, but there's no room for it, and it's too big. It's a lot of heat. They're ugly, so I'm not a fan of desktops.
So would you say like these days most people have laptops, right? Most people have laptops.
Yeah.
That's kind of like the trend these days.
It definitely is.
Now, my question I always have is, using a laptop as a desktop replacement. Getting two monitors, but getting maybe a hub or something to connect the laptop to the monitors, maybe get some speakers. Is that like fast enough for people? Whether it's you're using it for browsing the internet or playing games, right? Like the whole gamut of uses. Is it fast enough these days? And what's your thought?
Yeah, I definitely think it's fast enough. So maybe up until about 5 years ago, docking stations were pretty terrible. They didn't work well. The refresh rates and the monitors weren't good. You couldn't have multiple monitors. The drivers didn't work. Docking stations now are really good. Thunderbolt 3 is on a lot of laptops. Thunderbolt 3 is 40 gigabit per second. So you can have 1, 2, 3. You can have multiple video streams. You connect your laptop over the Thunderbolt 3 to the dock, and then the dock outputs the video to multiple screens, and it works. It works exceptionally well. So I recommend that now to people. But 10 years ago, I would never say, hey, get a docking station, plug 2 monitors in, because it's just not going to work well. But now it does. So everyone's buying laptops because you can use them anywhere in your home. You can sit on the couch, you can take it with you, go to the park, you can bring it to the office if you have one, and you need multiple monitors. You just plug in wherever you are, wherever there are monitors, and you're good to go.
Mm-hmm.
Can't do any of that with the desktop. You're stuck.
For example, if someone is, let's say, he doesn't really go out that much, and he or she doesn't go out that much. He or she works from home. So would it be wise for someone to get a more powerful desktop and a very, very weak, let's say not weak, but like more, cheap and less powerful laptop? Would that be a wise decision to make, or is it just get a powerful laptop?
That can make sense, but now you have 2 things. Now you have to figure out how to make your data sync between the 2 of them. You have to buy both of them. Why buy a desktop and a laptop when you can just invest all that money into one powerful laptop, or like a medium powerful ultralight laptop and like a setup? I would suggest desktop only in very unusual circumstances. If you're on a budget, I would suggest it, because you can get a lot of bang for your buck with the desktop. If you just are absolutely not planning on moving it anywhere, you're just going to keep it in one spot, you have a monitor, it's just going to sit there, collect dust, then yeah, you get a desktop. If you want to do some very hardcore gaming, you want to get a desktop. You can get something powerful, stick a RTX 3080, 3090 in one. If you have a couple of grand, then you can find one. And then you have a really killer gaming machine. You can do that too in a laptop. It's just not going to be as fast. You still need a good laptop with a good CPU. You need the eGPU case, and you need the video card. And then you can do some gaming or graphic things.
What about if it's a Mac instead? Let's talk about Macs. Would your philosophy still, be true for Macs?
The Mac ecosystem is a lot more cohesive. So if you have a Mac desktop and a Mac laptop, things are nicely combined. So you have iCloud, you have just everything's connected. So hey, if you can afford it and you need a laptop to travel and a desktop to just sit there, by all means, get both.
Right. So now that we're talking about Macs, I don't know if you saw a video of Snazzy Labs, and I'll drop the clip here.
Yeah.
Basically, they compared a $700 Mac Mini to a $1,000 DIY PC, and they kind of compared this, performance, and the Mac like really blew the PC out of the water in most cases. And this is the M1 Apple Silicon Mac, which is a new Mac that was introduced last year, which uses kind of like a mobile architecture, custom silicon, Apple designed silicon chips in the Mac. And for example, Premiere, the Mac Mini beat the PC. Cinebench R23 in single core, it barely beat the Windows, but it really beat the Windows in multi-core. Destroyed the Mac. Destroyed the PC in the Mac. Destroyed the PC in Geekbench and Unigine Heaven. So let me ask you, first of all, this is a question I have. In single core versus multi-core, is there a difference between, like, what should I expect when a Mac is more powerful in either category?
Yeah, so in single core, it really depends on what kind of test you're running. For single core, it's really about raw power. So a lot of applications are multi-core now, so you don't have to worry about it. But for single core, it's just how many megahertz you can get, how many gigahertz you can get. There's a lot more to it though. There's the cooling aspect, there's the architecture. It's really hard. It's hard to compare single core of CPU to another, just because so much of it goes into it. It's not like a one point in space thing.
Right. So you can't judge a single core score really with performance. Like for example, the PC desktop I have has a lower single core performance than the Mac Mini. And like I understand like for single core, maybe it could be things like, browsing the web, checking your email. Supposedly you can't really say that my Mac is slower or faster than.
You really can't do that anymore. 15, 20 years ago, everything was single core. You have a CPU, it's one core. It's not multi-threaded because it's the year 2000 and it's an 800 megahertz Pentium 3. So, and it's running at that clock, and there's no speed stuff. Like none of that exists. So, back then, 20 years ago, you could easily compare single core performance between two CPUs and really get useful numbers. Now there are just so many other variables that you really shouldn't be comparing single core performance between two CPUs, because there's 6 other things to consider.
What about multi-core? Is that a better yardstick?
It can be, yeah. Even with multi-core though, you have to consider the architecture and the cooling. You have to consider how many cores you have, because things like when you're running Chrome is just not one process. Chrome runs a whole lot of stuff in the background. So you want a lot of cores. The more cores you can have, the better for what you do. And just regular web browsing, because everything is web-based now. So you can have your CRM in one page. You can have a video playing in another page. You have all these different tabs, and all of them require processing. So to all my customers, I always recommend, if you can afford it, if you can spend the extra couple $100, get an i7 CPU, because it has more cores than an i5. It's probably faster per core, and you're going to get a lot more performance out of it. You're going to you'll be more productive with more cores. So I always say the more cores you can get, the better.
So it seems like even a simple app like, even though I guess it's not so simple, it really uses all your cores, right?
The what uses all the cores? I didn't catch that.
Chrome.
Chrome, yeah. When you have a lot of tabs open, there's a place you can check what processes are running just within Chrome. So you can see all the different things that it's doing. It's just Chrome does a lot now. It's really more than just a web browser. It's an entire ecosystem, and it needs a lot of processing. It needs a lot of RAM. It needs a lot of CPU. If you look at the RAM usages, it's always multiple gigs, 2-3 gigs just with a couple of tabs open. I don't even know why it's using that much RAM, but it is.
Yeah, so my desktop's multi-core performance is better than the Mac Mini, but then again, I'm comparing a $2,500 PC to a $700.
Yeah, you're comparing, I think, a Ryzen 3700, 3900, 3950X. I forget what you have.
Yeah. So, now that we do kind of know that, the Mac Mini beat the PC, even though the PC was $300 more, does it still make sense to get a PC desktop, let's say, in this situation? Like when we have something like the Mac Apple Silicon M1 Mac, available out there for only $700.
There's still a lot of reasons to get a PC, and I touched on some of them earlier. If you're on a budget, you get a PC. If you want something that you can tinker with, you get a PC. If you want to build it yourself, you get a PC. If you want to run Windows 10, you get a PC. If you really hate Mac OS X, you get a PC. If you don't like Apple, you get a PC. Now, specifically for the M1, there's still certain things that don't run in the M1. So you can't have Boot Camp yet. You can't run Windows 10 yet. You can run Parallels, but it's not the same thing. Certain software, even on Mac OS X, is still not compatible. So recently I ran into an issue where a customer bought a Mac M1. They didn't tell us they bought it. They just bought it. we help them configure it, and then we try to install Google File Stream, which is required to access their shared Google documents within the company. And as we're trying to install Google File Stream, it doesn't work. And it turns out Google has not yet created a compatible package of the file stream software that's compatible with the M1. So we couldn't do it. They have to wait until May.
Yeah, so it seems like you're saying that PCs, Mac M1s, M1 Max, they seem to be still needing to, test out the kinks, and they're still a little bit behind in updating, maybe Intel-based Mac software. When would you recommend someone, if they wanted to buy an M1 Mac, when would you recommend someone buy it? Is it like now, or maybe a little, a few months later, where these apps may be more fleshed out?
Yeah, I would definitely wait until late this year, maybe early next year. If you're just buying it for home, just for basic use, and you want something that's lightweight, that's fast, that's the latest and greatest, then yeah, definitely get like the new MacBook Air with the M1. And if you love OS X and you don't care about a few things here and there possibly not working yet, it's a great purchase. If you're a business user, do not buy an M1 right now, because who knows what will happen. So I don't think it's a mature platform yet for business.
Right. That's very important. So basically what you're saying is, for personal use, you can buy it now, but maybe for business use, maybe wait a little bit, to the end of the year or beginning of next year.
Yeah, I manage close to 500 endpoints. I wouldn't tell any of them to just go out and get an M1 Mac. I'm not prepared to run into these issues where they need software and I can't install it for them because it's not compatible. Like I don't want that to happen.
Right.
That's not a risk that I'm willing to take with anyone.
Yeah, and I definitely did notice installing certain software were not compatible with the M1. And certain monitors were not compatible with the M1.
Yeah.
Some older Dell.
eGPU also. I don't believe eGPUs work with M1. So there's a big list of stuff. And if you're a power user or business user or anything like that, you're going to run into problems. You're going to be upset.
Yeah. So I guess like when we're talking about computers, there's a lot of sales on slick deals, right, for PCs. Especially these gaming desktops, right? And let's say you're in the market for a gaming desktop, and your budget is like $1,500.
Reasonable.
What's that?
It's a reasonable budget for a gaming machine.
Yeah, $1,500. But you see a lot of these sales on slick deals, $1,200, $1,700. Does it make sense to still buy does it make sense to build your computer, when those kind of components end up costing $1,500, $1,600, or does it make sense to just buy the complete, built set, and save your time?
Yeah, there's certain benefits to building a computer. The main one I would say is you learn a lot. You learn what the components are, how to put them together, what works, what doesn't, how to choose them, how to price them, how to shop for them. So for those reasons, I would recommend building a computer. But if you just want a gaming computer, you want it delivered to you, then buy one. Another big reason to just buy versus build is you get warranty from one manufacturer rather than warranty from 7 or 8 different manufacturers. So where a part fails, you have to first figure out what part failed. Then you have to get that part replaced from the manufacturer, whether it's the video card or the ME. So if you're prepared for that's fine. But if you just want something to work, don't build it yourself. You might save money, you might not save money. If you really know the value of the components that you're putting in, and you do the research, you could save some money. You could save a couple $100, but it's a lot of effort goes into building a computer, and you have to be prepared for what comes with that if you choose to do that.
Yeah. You know, I built a computer last year, and you were the person that I had a big issue where like the computer just wouldn't turn on.
Yeah, it didn't work.
And you were the person who saved the day. You know, what really happened, and is this something, I feel like this is something that I should have just bought a computer on sale or something.
Yeah, so what ended up happening was the way that the motherboard was being powered was somehow not compatible with the motherboard. So the all the rails are plugged into the motherboard from the CPU. It looked fine. Everything fit, right? With computers, if it fits, it works. In this case, that wasn't quite right. So I did some reading. I did some Googling. It turned out that you can't have all those rails filled. You have to take some of them out. And when you take some of them out, the motherboard gets the proper voltage, the proper power, proper amperage to turn on. So eventually I figured it out, and I plugged it in, and it worked. That was the end of it.
Yeah, it was the end of it. You definitely solved it in a very timely manner. And this was something that was a huge headache for me, and I do regret building. I don't think I'm out to build computers anymore. But you know, I guess to wrap it up, like, what kind of gaming systems are you do you have, and what's your best game for each system?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Switch. So I've had a Switch for a couple of years. I love all the Zelda games on the Switch. Breath of the Wild was a game that I spent a lot of time with. End of 2019, early 2020. Last year, I spent a lot of time playing Animal Crossing on the Switch till I got sick of it, and now I'm playing Stardew Valley kind of a little excessively. Aside from the Switch, I play a lot of games on my iPhone, just because I can play them anywhere. You know, if I'm waiting for something, I open it up, do something, close it. I'm not a huge fan of console gaming. I had a PS4. I never really. I played Fallout for a while, but and then Ace Combat, but after that, I just never got into that console gaming. I also got a Stadia recently, and tried playing Cyberpunk. Didn't work. So I gave that up, but I'm going to give it another chance at some point, maybe if I get a new TV and upgrade to the 4K Stadia. So it looks pretty.
You have a lot of you seem like you have a lot of like different tastes in games. Even with, I've never tried Stadia before. Is that good?
It's Google's streaming platform. I haven't spent enough time with it to really say if it's good or bad. It's an interesting concept because the processing for the rendering happens somewhere else, and then it's streamed over to the to the Chromecast Ultra, and then that goes to the TV. So you don't need a big expensive console. I paid $50 for the whole Stadia and the game on promotion. So it's nice in that sense. You can take it with you if you travel a lot. You want to play games on a TV on the go in hotels. Just bring your Stadia with you, and you've got your hardcore gaming setup that you can put in your pocket, which is cool.
So it's like a controller plus, I guess, the browser.
Yeah, it's a controller, and it's it's a tiny little dongle that you plug into your HDMI port, and it's powered. It's very small. You can put it in your pocket and into your bag and just take it anywhere with you. Also, it's not like a big PS4.
You don't really need the computer. You can just plug it into a TV.
Mm-hmm. You don't need the computer. You plug it into anything that has an HDMI port.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's cool.
That's pretty cool. Well, thank you for so much for sharing your insight. Can you?
Yeah, you're welcome.
If people want to reach you, people want to, check out your services, how can they find out more about you?
Sure, yeah. So check out amoebanetworks.com. We provide managed services to small, medium businesses. Email me, mike@amoebanetworks.com or info@amoebanetworks.com. Ask me anything. I'm always happy to chat about technology things.
All right, there we have it. Mike Volfman with Amoeba Networks, first guest on SkyTech One. Thank you so much, Mike.
You're welcome, Victor. Take care.